Hey everybody, welcome to Crazy Tech Lab, and I've got an absolutely awesome video for you today because right now Intel is announcing its 12th generation Alder Lake CPUs, and we will be revealing all the specifications of the new CPUs in this video today, as well as looking or having a brief look at a whole bunch of really cool hardware from Asus and Corsair, who have been kind enough to send over some really cool gubbins here today. And also I have my samples from Intel as well. I've got the Core i5 12600K and the Core i9 12900K with the 12700K inbound very shortly. So hopefully I can get all the numbers to you next week around the launch of the CPUs in terms of their performance numbers. What that does mean though is that I can't reveal any performance numbers to you today. Today is just revealing what the hardware is going to look like, what we're actually looking at, and also the specifications of the processors themselves. So we'll be taking a look at all of that today, as well as checking out all this hardware. I will also be putting up some in-depth previews of some of this hardware as well, namely what's in this crazy Asus ROG box here, and also the fabulous looking ROG Strix Z690i gaming Wi-Fi, which is the brand new Asus mini-ITX motherboard as well, which looks absolutely fantastic. And also today, more importantly, we're going to be checking out what you need to know if you're planning on building or upgrading to Alder Lake, whether it's with the i5, the i7 or the i9, because quite a lot has changed. You may or may not know that. We've got a new CPU socket, there are more pins there, the mounting mechanism has changed, the mounting holes have changed, so that means that there's a whole bunch of cooler compatibility issues out there. Issues is a strong word, it's probably not as strong as issues because lots of manufacturers for coolers are actually releasing adapter kits free of charge, which is great news, and a lot of coolers like the brand new Corsair H550i Elite LCD is actually compatible with the LGA 1700 socket out of the box, which is great news. But a lot of coolers out there, even if you buy them brand new now, aren't necessarily compatible. So definitely something we'll be talking about later. So without the performance numbers today though, you'll definitely want to tune in to my next video or one of my next videos, because I will be talking about all those performance numbers. I'll be checking out the performance of these new CPUs in games and content creation, all the usual stuff. So don't forget to subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so you are notified when I upload new videos, especially that one. I can't reveal any benchmark numbers today, as I've already said, but one thing I will say is that this launch from Intel is the most exciting in a very long time. That is all I can say, and that is off the back of having a look at some benchmarks myself, and it's just really exciting. So definitely one to watch. Do stay tuned, like this video as well, and obviously subscribe to be notified when I publish those performance numbers. So the really interesting thing about the new Intel CPUs is that they use a hybrid core architecture. So we've got two different cores essentially under the heat spreader. There are performance cores, which deal with the high demand workloads, such as those main threads in games and content creation. And you've also got efficient cores as well, or E-cores. So you've got P cores and E cores. I'll be referring to them as such later for the rest of this video. So the E cores are essentially there to supplement the P cores, but they also give a handy boost to multi-threaded workloads. They also handle idle tasks and that kind of stuff quite well as well. So just those lower demanding tasks, that's where those E cores are coming in essentially, and filling in for those P cores if they're all used up with those high performance threads. So that's essentially how that hybrid core architecture works. But Intel hasn't just stopped there, and it's not just relying on Windows to make the decisions about which cores to put which threads onto. It actually has something called Thread Director, and I've actually seen this working firsthand at the Intel press briefing earlier this week, and it was really interesting because it's essentially working with Windows in tandem, telling it where to put these threads. It's working with the OS task scheduler to work out where to put the threads for maximum performance. So it's not just the differences in cores, it's the fact that Intel has put a lot of R&D working with Microsoft to actually get this thing working properly. So hopefully we will be seeing significant performance advantages across the board, not just in lightly and single-threaded workloads, but in multi-threaded workloads too. because we are essentially dealing with a 16-core CPU with the 12900K, and there are 24 threads to go with that as well. So not as many threads as something like the Ryzen 9 5950X, because those efficient cores, 8 of them in the 12900K, are not hyper-threaded. So you don't get the full stack of hyper-threading and extra threads that you would do on a CPU where all the cores are essentially the same. Here, Intel has seen fit to limit hyper-threading just to the P cores. So all I will say is that everything is kind of dramatic with this CPU. It's very, very interesting about how it works, and it's definitely something you will want to look at in future. So I just wanted to talk briefly about the amazing press kit that I've got from Intel, and as you can see here, it's a really cool plaque included in the press kit, and you've got essentially a die shot of the Alder Lake core, and this is specifically for the 12900K because you've got the 8 performance cores there, the P cores. You can see they're the much larger cores there with hyper-threading and everything else going on. And over here, you can see there are 2 banks of E cores, and there are 4 E cores in each bank here. So essentially, you can fit at least 2 E cores into each performance core. In fact, if you squeeze them up, get rid of the cache and the gaps in between, you probably almost fit 4 E cores into 1 P core. So that's kind of what everything looks like under the hood. Hopefully, you can see that there. I'll see if I can just give you a good flash on the video there, just see if you can see what's actually going on. And just a nice little treat there from Intel. And in the box, what I have here is, as you can see, the Core i5 and the Core i9. So those CPUs are here ready to go. I did already see some benchmarks at the recent Intel event, but I have those CPUs, and we'll also have the i7 ready for benchmarking in time for the embargo lift as well. So super exciting times. I'm so lucky to have this hardware here, and I'd like to again thank Asus, Corsair, and Intel, of course, as well as Kingston for sending along some memory to actually test everything with here. So in terms of the important things you need to know, obviously we've got a whole bunch of stuff that's changing with Alder Lake. We've got DDR5 being introduced. We've got a new processor socket. The CPU height is different, which means that there's potential cooler compatibility issues, and it's whether it's going to be worth the upgrade as well. So we've got the hybrid core design, which is hopefully going to really ramp up performance. It's basically a double whammy with Intel. We've got a 10 nanometer manufacturing process, we've got a new architecture, and we've also got this hybrid core design. So we pretty much haven't seen anything like this from Intel for a very long time. And in fact, we've never seen anything like a hybrid core architecture. I'd maybe say it's akin to when Intel first went dual core and quad core back in the early 2000s or mid 2000s. So this is kind of on par with that release, and that's why I'm super excited about it, and why I think every PC enthusiast should be excited about it out there. So what I'll do now then is just crack open some of the boxes here. We can have a look at the products, and we can also check out the CPU socket and just discuss some more things about the memory and coolers. Okay, so here we have the Asus ROG Strix Z690i gaming Wi-Fi, and this board is absolutely gorgeous, and if you're a small form factor fan, you will be recognizing this board compared to the Z590 versions. In fact, a lot of the versions have actually looked very similar to this, with the double stack of PCBs here. So you've got 2 M.2 ports going across the board here. You've also got the USB 2 headers, a fan header, and an RGB header down there as well. Both sides of the M.2 ports are cooled as well now, and with thermal pads, as you can hopefully see under there. And we've also got a large heatsink on the top as well, with this kind of glossy, reflective ROG logo on the top there. So it's a very stacked board, but the new addition this time round is this daughter board down here. Now, as you can see, the daughter board actually fits, actually connects with 2 Type-C ports. When I got this out of the box, I was wondering what on earth it actually was. But Asus is quite good at doing this and just adding bits onto the board as it sees fit to make more space. So I'm guessing it was a bit space strapped around the rest of the PCB. So to get some SATA ports on here, and the SATA ports on here are the only ones that are actually on the board. So you've got 2 on the top, and 2 on the bottom of this gubbin here. But I'm guessing it needed to do this to ensure that it did actually get the SATA ports on there. Also, weirdly, it's got the front panel on this thing as well. You can see that just there by my index finger, and you can use that as the front panel. But there is also a 2-pin header for your power, for your case's power port or power button down there. So I think it's down there. It's either down there or around there somewhere. But that's as an alternative. So if you don't want to use this, if you just kind of want to get rid of that thing and you don't need any SATA ports, you can just have a better view of your memory like this. So, but it's kind of a neat little addition to the whole thing here. And you've also got the RGB connector down there on the as well on the left. My only problem with this though is the top ports here. They actually have, they're kind of the wrong way round to route the cables. If I just pop this thing back in, I'll be able to show you a bit better what I'm talking about. So the 2 connectors down here, great for cable routing, like the cables would just come off around here and you can route them through the cable tidying holes on your motherboard tray. Just imagine this is like a motherboard tray here, you probably have cable routing holes around here. However, with these 2 ports at the top, what we're looking at is the ports basically are the wrong way round. So not wrong way round, I mean Asus has clearly done it for a reason, but this way round, I'm guessing it was done for reasons of, you know, circuitry or something. But like this, essentially the cables will have to go off that way. They'll have to go off that way. If they're right angled, they will have to go off that way. So the only other way maybe is if there is like a reverse angled SATA cable. I don't know if there is, I haven't actually checked. Just kind of saying stuff off the top of my head here, but at the moment, if you have a right angle connector, it will go this way, so it will kind of go traipsing over this heatsink. And if you have the straight connectors, they're obviously going to be sticking right up out of the motherboard, which is maybe a bit unsightly. So potentially a couple of other ways that Asus might have been able to do this, but it's just one of those things that you'll have to deal with when living with this board. But there's pretty much everything else here that you'd expect. You've got the USB 3.1 Type-C header, USB 3.0 header as well. There's only 3 fan headers, one of which is actually on this PCB down here, which is, it's going to be a tight fit if you're, well, very tight fit, nigh on impossible to get to that if your graphics card is installed. So you imagine there, that's not a big gap. Actually getting in to look at that. The cooling, we've actually got a very, very large set of heat sinks here, and there's a heat pipe attaching those 2 heat sinks as well. Flipping round the I/O panel, we've got a reasonable amount of Type A ports. So what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've literally just opened this box, so we've got 7 Type A ports. Most of those are USB 3 and above. We've got 2 Thunderbolt equipped Type-C ports there as well. The audio, Asus has actually given us an optical output, a SPDIF output this time, as well as 3 audio jacks for the audio down there. You also get a clear CMOS button and the usual USB BIOS flashback. And if you just want to use your CPU with the integrated graphics, you do get an HDMI port, but of course you can use the Thunderbolt ports as well if you've got all the Thunderbolt gear to hand. Now, there is one omission on this board which I've noticed is definitely missing compared to its AMD counterparts. I don't know if it was actually there on the Z590 version, I think it might have been, but that is the thermal probe header. So I was kind of hoping that the 2-pin port down here was the thermal probe input, but actually that's the new power button, or the additional power button in addition to the one you've already got on the front panel connector here. It probably won't make a lot of difference to a lot of people, but my my orange mini-ITX build that you've probably seen here on the channel, I use the X570 version of this board, and that has the thermal probe header, which I've attached to my liquid cooling loop to increase and decrease the radiator fan speed based on coolant temperature, which is a much more efficient way of doing things. This board doesn't have that thermal input, which is a little bit of a shame. I'm guessing they just didn't see it being needed, but really I think, I don't think there are any other people that actually have one on their mini-ITX motherboard, so it's a bit of a shame. I have yet to see what Gigabyte, MSI and ASRock are offering, but as far as Asus goes, it's a bit of a shame that the Z690 motherboard doesn't have a thermal probe input, because I thought that was a a pretty good feature to have, even if the Asus software and EFI stuff wasn't particularly granular when it came to adjusting your fan speed based on coolant temperatures. So overall though, I think that's a pretty good looking board. You get 2.5G Ethernet as well, and 802.11ax Wi-Fi, and I think it's a fantastic looking board that will no doubt handle Intel's new CPUs very, very well. And while I'm here, what I'm going to do, and also you can see the Kingston Fury memory in there. So that's pretty low profile stuff compared to Corsair's Dominators, but it's obviously, you know, you've got plenty of CPU cooler height. If you've got a low riding CPU cooler, if you're going low profile with that. But what I wanted to do is just show you how the CPU socket works. So as you can see here, the design from Asus actually uses both socket mounting holes. You can see that there's kind of like an elongated hole, and Asus is actually offering both LGA 1700 and also LGA 1200 and 11XX for the previous sockets support in this socket. So I'm not sure why it would want to do that, because you've got the difference in Z height with the CPU. The CPUs, the Alder Lake CPUs, sit much lower than their previous counterparts, which means that a lot of coolers, or most coolers, will need adapter plates in order to fit. So I'm not sure why Asus has actually done that. Maybe there are coolers out there that will actually work, or you can use existing back plates, but with a slightly different mounting kit or something like that, or mounting pins. But anyway, the socket is much beefier than previous generations. It kind of sits between LGA 2066 and 1200 in terms of its beefiness, if I can actually say that. So there's a lot of force needed to actually lift this. I'm going to do this really carefully because there's a heck of a lot of force behind that. So it's like a dual latch thing. It goes, the main latch goes one way, and the CPU socket, which I'll do now, just kind of lifts up the other way, as you see that. So it's kind of out and above both ways, and then it's pretty hefty. It's a much heftier mounting mechanism than the previous sockets. And then to get it down again, once your CPU's in, of course, you'll just pop that down, and again, a lot of force required to actually do that. You just kind of hook it down underneath there, and then you're done. That's basically how you install your Alder Lake CPU, and we'll move on now and look at some of the other boards. Okay, so what do we have here then? I've had to move kind of everything around just to kind of get in front of this box and actually get it on camera, because it's absolutely enormous. So I don't know what's in here, you don't know what's in here, so I'm just going to kind of go for it and see what we've got here from Asus. Of course, big ROG logo on the front, and Republic of Gamers obviously on the bottom, and oh wow, look at that. That's absolutely amazing. It's kind of this red acrylic in the ROG logo. Let's get rid of that big sheet of paper that ended up being a lot bigger than I thought it was. And yeah, wow, that's absolutely amazing. And this thing weighs a ton. What is actually in here? It can't just be a motherboard. Or maybe it is just like a really, really heavy one. That looks absolutely amazing. So well done, Asus, on this fantastic pack. And lifting this up, what do we have? Ah, we have Mr. Hero. So ROG Maximus Z690 Hero. I know a lot of people are going to be interested in this board, and if you were wondering whether there was going to be a DDR5 or a DDR4 version of this board, well, we know already that this one at least is DDR5, and of course you've got PCI Express 5.0 support there. Obviously that comes with the part of the bargain, and LGA 1700 of course. So that's a really, really neat box. See what it says up here. Just a little thank you from Asus, I think, for those who dare. So yeah, well done to Asus on this absolutely crazy box. What I haven't actually asked them though is whether everybody gets this with their Hero. I don't know whether they do. I'm obviously very lucky. I've been doing this long enough to actually have a look at it. So actually what might be interesting for us, if I leave that in there and just see what's actually underneath, that does seem to be the main heft of it, I think. Whether or not there's actually anything in this one, I think I'm actually gonna have to take that out. Can it actually come out? I think I actually need two people here, because this is like really awkward doing this on camera. Right, let's get that out the top first. Oh my God, that board weighs a ton for a Hero. That's got to be the heaviest Hero I think I've ever seen. It's just absolutely crazy. So let's have a look. But wait, there's more. Let's have a look inside. This is like kind of being back at a kid's party and not knowing what's actually going on. So let's have a look here. Don't know whether there is anything more going on. Certainly not in this box. This box feels empty, and it is empty. So, Asus, what are you doing? Is there actually anything in here? Is the question. Maybe they just forgot to put something in. There's that, but there's nothing kind of in there. Ah, maybe it was the memory. I can't actually remember. Maybe I did actually look at this earlier. Yeah, maybe it was the memory. So sorry about that. There was like a massive, I was getting really excited as well. I thought, oh, is there something in here that I haven't actually found yet? So yeah, it was the, I think it must have been the memory. So yeah, this board's, oh my God, this box is ridiculous. Let's take a look inside. Let me get rid of all this stuff and we can have a look inside. Just need to shift some stuff out the way of the camera. All very unprofessional, but hey ho. So this is, let me just bring the camera down so you can actually see this and zoom in a bit as well. So ROG Maximus Z690 Hero, and here we are. This thing, oh my God, the heat sinks on this thing are outrageous. For a Hero board, which used to be kind of their more budget focused board, down from the Maximus, this board weighs an absolute friggin' ton, I tell you. That's one of the biggest heat sinks I think I've ever seen on a motherboard. That is absolutely huge. If this board suffers from overheating VRMs, I will eat my shoes, assuming that they're making good contact, of course, because that VRM is ridiculous. Hopefully that's not a sign of things to come with Intel's new CPU, but who knows? Yeah, that's just absolutely amazing. So let me just move the board out the way for a minute and have a bit of a zoom out over here so we can take a proper look at it. So yeah, there she is. What a fantastic looking motherboard. It's a big kind of, I'm guessing that's going to start glowing once I start plugging it in with all sorts of RGB gubbins. It's got that look about it. I doubt it's just going to be a mirror sitting there. Yeah, it's really, really interesting. And there's something that I saw on Facebook this morning. Someone leaked a photo somewhere. I haven't actually seen one of these yet because the mini-ITX motherboard, which is the only motherboard I've actually looked at so far, that doesn't have this, but I'm just going to wait and see what actually happens here. Ah, can you see what happens with the PCI Express slot? Donk. That is genius because I have lost count of the number of times that I cannot access or detach my graphics card because this thing, I cannot get my finger down here because the graphics card sits in the way. So I love that. That is such a good innovation. So how does that actually work? I think there must be anything on the rear. No. So this must be like a lever that goes underneath this heatsink and then does something to the latch there. So that's super, super interesting. Really good move there. It doesn't work on the other slots, of course. You can see they're not as beefy with all the plastic paraphernalia. But yeah, I really like that. What a great motherboard. So I'm seeing lots and lots of fan headers here. There's at least eight fan headers. So that's a pretty reasonable amount of fan headers. The rear I/O port. So you've got two Thunderbolt 4 ports there. USB BIOS flashback, you've got a CMOS clear switch, 2.5 gig Ethernet, plenty of Type-C USB ports, and the full complement of audio outputs as well. And first time, I think, for a Hero, I think you've got power and reset buttons. Usually they were only found on more premium motherboards, but now the thing, as always, is the price. I haven't actually seen a price from Asus yet. This is just going to be something that we'll have to wait and see. They haven't released anything price-wise to journalists yet, so I'm kind of in the dark. Can't really come to any conclusions. And I haven't dropped a CPU in here yet, so I don't know how it performs either. But all I can say now is that this motherboard looks and feels like it means business, and it's got some really cool innovation as well going on there with the features. So I'm going to put that down. I'm just going to see what we've got in the box because Asus has been surprising us with its box gubbins recently. So yeah, I thought there might be something else. So here we have, I think, well, looks like a 2-port PC. Is it PCI Express 5? Pretty sure another one I saw was PCI Express 5. There's nothing on here that actually tells me what it is. But anyway, so at least PCI Express 4, I suspect it might be PCIe 5. The one that was included with the Apex that I saw earlier, I'm pretty sure was. But yeah, that's no doubt going to push the price up. But if you're looking for insane amounts of M.2 NVMe storage, this motherboard is packing a punch. I mean, it kind of... just harking back to when the Hero was introduced, I mean, this board is just absolutely nuts, I have to say. So USB drivers or drivers on a USB stick, always nice to see. Had problems with that last week because the mini-ITX motherboard didn't come with drivers on a USB stick, and I had misplaced my CD drive, or DVD drive should I say, and had a few issues with that. But anyway, so yeah, the rest of the stuff in the box is kind of your usual stuff. I think you've got a graphics card support, but the main gubbins really are the expansion card with 2 M.2 ports cooled underside and on the top by this massive heatsink, so completely fanless. That is basically just one big hunk of metal on the top there, so you do not need a fan with that. You'd need to sandwich it in between 2 toaster ovens for the heat to be an issue, I think, which it isn't going to be in your average PC. And that is it from an Asus point of view. What a fantastic looking motherboard. I think Asus has done a really good job on that. And I'm going to pop him away and we can take a look at some other bits. Okay, so the final motherboard that we're going to be looking at today, just getting my previews out on launch day of all these motherboards, is the TUF Gaming Z690 Plus Wi-Fi D4. And D4 probably explains probably one of the main features about this board, which are the memory slots, which are DDR4 compatible. So this, according to Asus, is going to be the DDR4 version of this board, but I'm reliably told that it will be offering a DDR5 version as well. So this is kind of one of those strange situations where you get a DDR4 and a DDR5 version of exactly the same board. So what obviously you need to make sure that you're aware of is that you don't get DDR4 and DDR5 support on the same motherboard. They are 2 completely different SKUs and you'll have to go for one or the other. So unlike, I think it was the move from DDR2 to DDR3, or maybe even you know, like older memory to DDR or something like that, they offered both, you know, compatibility with both types of memory on the single board. As far as I know, that's not happening on any Z690 boards, or certainly none that I've seen. It's either one or the other. So with this board though, obviously a lot more basic than the Hero that we saw earlier, but you do get 2 large M.2 heatsinks, and there are actually 2 M.2 ports under there, another one here and another one up here. So there's actually 4 NVMe M.2 ports on this motherboard, which is really, really great to see. So the cooling wise, as you can see there's no link with a heat pipe. It's just 2 massive heat sinks, and this one here goes all the way back over the back of the PCB. No overclocking or testing tools on this board, as you'd expect. It's going to be retailing for a lot cheaper than the massive monstrous Hero that we looked at a minute ago. But you do get USB Type-C header there as well, and something that's really nice are these angled SATA ports down here. I really like that. So it's super flush with the PCB. There are only 4 though, so if you're needing 6 SATA ports, you're going to be disappointed with this board. The other 2 are down here at the bottom of the PCB as well. So looking pretty like a pretty decent motherboard though. Obviously no pricing released at the moment. I'm still waiting on that to hear from Asus about that. Flipping it around here at the I/O panel, and a pretty decent offering. Not a great deal of USB ports. You've only got 6 Type A USB ports down there, which is, I kind of say, the bare minimum for a you know, a high-end desktop PC. I mean, I know that I would struggle with 6, But you do have the Type-C ports as well, which are obviously massively expandable with USB hubs and that kind of thing. And you can kind of use a USB hub with the other ports as well. But still, it's just nice to have whatever you've got coping with your particular setup. So full complement of audio outputs, of course, 802.11ax Wi-Fi. And also down here, we've got video outputs, just in case you don't want to use those PCI Express graphics slots for graphics cards and you want to output the display from your 12th gen CPU and its integrated graphics just straight out over those ports there. And yeah, nothing really on the back of the PCB, so a pretty solid motherboard there with lots of M.2 ports from Asus with the Tough Gaming Z690 plus Wi-Fi D4. And of course, just remember that if you want to transplant your DDR4 memory, you don't want to have that extra upgrade cost with your Alder Lake motherboard. This is one of the motherboards you're going to want to be considering because it offers DDR4 support. So thanks Asus for sending that over. We'll have a quick look at one of the last motherboards and then we'll call it a day. Okay, so here we are with the final motherboard then, and it is the mighty Asus ROG Maximus Z690 Apex. So this is the kind of pinnacle of the extreme end of the Asus product range, and for lots and lots of good reasons. The power circuitry is just insane. You get loads and loads of cool features. This massive heatsink here and this kind of triple array of heatsinks around the CPU socket. You can see they're all linked by heat pipes all the way around, so absolutely crazy. And all the overclocking tools you can imagine. There's like an enlarged, I think that's actually one of the largest postcode displays I've ever seen, but you get start, reset power buttons, of course, and a whole load. You get the voltage readout points here, BIOS switches, you know, the whole shebang. So it's an absolutely incredible motherboard that I'm looking forward to playing when it comes to overclocking Alder Lake CPUs. And there's that nifty little latch again, probably even more useful if you're going on liquid nitrogen and extreme overclocking and that kind of stuff. So you just push the button there and it pops open the primary graphics slot latch, which is amazing. So that's certainly going to be really useful from my point of view, just installing graphics cards in systems and needing to pull them out. And I think on this motherboard it's even more necessary because there is, I mean, look at the gap. Like once you've got your GPU sitting there, you just need to stick a screwdriver like 2 inches down past this massive heatsink here. And that's just going to be really awkward. So I think this is a long time coming. I've certainly had issues with this before. And I'm glad to see that Asus has rectified that problem with this switch here. So loads and loads of cool features on this board. It's probably going to be very expensive, but as you can see, I'm just going to take this off here. That's actually just kind of chromed at the edge there. You can see it's actually reflecting my finger. So that just looks absolutely gorgeous. So plenty of aesthetic prowess going on with this motherboard. Going to swap it around, have a look at the rear I/O panel. And I should say that I'll be reviewing this board in full on launch day. So just not had enough time with all of this stuff and the CPUs and things over the last week to kind of get to grips with things. But full reviews out with performance data as well on the launch day, which is coming very, very soon. So you'll be able to see just how well this board performs, how well it overclocks as well. So looking forward to that. So the I/O panel then, plenty of USB ports on here. I think you get 9 Type A ports. You also get a Type-C port, but it doesn't look like it's Thunderbolt. So there's no Thunderbolt on this board. Bit of a shame, I guess, if you're going to be paying kind of extreme amounts of money, which you probably are for this this overclocking oriented board. You might want to include Thunderbolt just for lols, basically. And I think, you know, there's a lot of people that will just buy this board just because it's awesome and stick it in their normal tower PCs rather than just going all out with liquid nitrogen. But yeah, anyway, horses for courses and all that. So BIOS clear switch and USB BIOS flashback. So presumably if you're going to be installing some sort of second generation LGA 1700 CPU into this motherboard, and you have the motherboard, you buy the motherboard in the future and it's not compatible, you will be able to use USB BIOS flashback there, which is cool. So integrated 2.5 gigabit Ethernet, of course, and 802.11ax Wi-Fi. And what we'll do now is just move the motherboard over there. So you spotted Another what looks like a DIMM slot over there, and of course you can guess what's in the box. It's one of my favourite Asus features. But before we get that, I'll just pop this jobby out. So see what I mean with the Hero one earlier that we saw of this? It didn't say PCI Express 5 on the bottom, so I need to check whether that is actually the case on the Hero for my full review. Again, there'll be a review of that board out next week. And here looks like you've got, I think it's just the one. It looks like just the one M.2 port under there. So clearly Asus knows something that we don't in terms of SSD availability. There might be some other things in the works, but a very, very nice looking daughter board or add-on card or whatever you want to call it there from Asus. Massive heatsink on the top, and I'm expecting somewhere, I haven't found it yet, any Asus fans out there will know what I'm looking for. And yeah, there we go. So that's the DIMM.2 module with what looks like a pair of additional M.2 ports underneath. I'll just whip this out so you can actually see what's going on. Proper unboxing here. So I've literally not looked at any of this stuff yet. It's been a very, very crazy week. So there we go, that's the DIMM.2 module. Now I really like this because it puts the M.2 SSDs vertically, and it means that they can just make a bit better use of your case's airflow, which they don't necessarily do if they're horizontal on the PCB. So this, if I bring the motherboard back into view, so this is the M.2 slot, or the DIMM.2 should I say. Asus actually calls it the DIMM.2, which is kind of funky. So we pop that in there like that, and probably nothing new, as I say, to Asus fans, but that's basically giving you an extra 2 M.2 ports. Doesn't interfere with your memory, but obviously be aware that this motherboard only has two DIMM slots, so you'll only be able to use 2 memory modules in this board because the rest of the space is taken up by the DIMM.2. And to be honest, I just love this board from an extreme point of view. I think it looks absolutely fantastic. Just gonna have a quick look in the box to see if there's anything else that I should be mentioning. You get the Wi-Fi aerial. I think there's like a voltage readout pins and thermal probes and that kind of stuff. Sadly didn't get the thermal probe headers on the mini-ITX board that we spoke about earlier, but they're definitely included here. And if we just flip this up, just a very quick look down here, looks like you've got just one M.2 SSD port on the board itself. So some quite aggressive cooling there if it's just one port. I'm just wondering whether I'm kind of missing a few ports here. I suspect there might be some on the other side of this heatsink. Let's see if I can spot them. Yeah, I can't spot anything in there. They're probably there. I can only see one from this end though, and it's like a full-length slot that runs all the way down. So, but I can see there that the M.2, I don't know if you guys can see that in there, but that's the SSD is cooled from both sides. So there's a small slither of metal underneath, thermal pads on both sides, and it's cooled on both of those as well. So it's kind of annoying me not being able to see what was actually going on in here. And if you just look in the manual, there's just going to be 76,000 M.2 ports listed because of the DIMM.2 as well. So let's just whip this off and see what we've actually got underneath. So it looks like there's 3 screws. I kind of want to do this with this board. I should just wait for the review, but I thought I'd show you guys now just because I wasn't sure of the specs and I want to make sure. So yeah, it is just a single M.2 port as I thought. So this massive heatsink, that SSD is going to be cooled very well. I don't think that's going to be throttling at all, and obviously limited to 2280 SSDs in there. Probably slightly bigger in the DIMM.2 arrangement up there, but obviously there aren't really any longer SSDs out there, are there? I don't know why that was even included. So that's it from my quick roundup of the Asus motherboards, and finishing off with the fantastic ROG Maximus Z690 Apex. So I'm going to try and get some pricing because at the moment when I'm actually doing these reviews, no one was actually releasing pricing for the CPUs or anything else. I will drop the pricing into the description in the link below for the boards and CPUs as they are revealed, which they probably will be around launch time, which is very, very soon. And one last thing, Asus has also included the LGA 1700 replacement socket mounting kit. So this will work with coolers such as the Asus Ryujin coolers. So that's obviously Asetek based, as are a lot of other coolers. So anything, or a lot of things from maybe Thermaltake, NZXT, Corsair, that kind of stuff, they're going to have similar kits or adapter kits to this. So all you'll be getting are some different height pins, presumably that will allow the water block, the pump section, to actually raise up, or actually raise down in this case, to meet the CPU block. You've got a slightly different adapter plate as well. So the slots, the things actually move on there a tiny amount. And again, if you look at the slot here, you've got the twin mounting holes for the previous socket and the current LGA 1700 sockets. So this is basically what you'll be getting if you've got an Asetek cooler and you apply or go online and order the alternative kit. So thanks to Asus for sending that over, and I'll be using its Ryujin cooler in my testing as well. So this is yeah, very much appreciated, and just works in the standard way as you would do with the other Asetek coolers. So that's it from me. So thanks for watching, and I will catch you soon.